All right, everybody. I hope you got your work shirts on and your pajama bottoms on because we're continuing the conversation about working from home, remote work on this episode of Beyond the Borderline with your hosts, Connor, Cam, Ryan, and Phil.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. Good intro there. So yeah, we'll continue where we left off last episode. We will discuss, like Connor said, the working from home. Is remote work actually a feasible response to the real or perceived grievances of the younger workforce? And is a 4-day week a potential option as well that can both improve people's mental health and enjoyment in their jobs and also potentially see more productivity? But we'll also cover other things about the Great Resignation. So I'll throw it over to Philly cheesesteak, and
All right, all right.
he can take it
I'm
away.
honored. I'm honored. So,
Philadelphia.
thank you. So
Philadelphia cream
last episode,
cheese.
I alluded to the fact that Europe is um, having increasing legislation in labor-related issues. Firstly, I want to talk about. I'm not exactly sure if this is a bill that has passed or is going to be passed, but it's legislation put forth by the Finnish government, essentially banning or prohibiting employers from contacting employees after scheduled work hours,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's electronic, whether that's calling. The idea,
I kind of like
um,
that.
it would be great. The idea is that um, employees should only be contacted outside of work if it's for emergency purposes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even think that short-staffed falls under that umbrella of an
Right.
emergency, which is very interesting territory because we've been told that we are a slave to the beholder, which is our employer.
Well, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Well, in some ways and in others. Basically, and then I'll touch on the 4-day work week. So kind of the 4-day work week was maybe derived from this legislation, one step beneath that. So this legislation would essentially ban employees from being contacted by their employers, whether it's like, just like shooting the shit or just kind of to protect um their own sanity. I'm not sure exactly what it was called. It was kind of along the lines of restful sleep, something like that, where it's like a true when you're like truly off of work to kind
Right.
of like have that definitive line. Um
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with like legislation on that, but I certainly can get behind the principle of yeah, I'm done, fuck
I
off.
think
yeah.
I think it makes sense in a lot of roles, but some roles it wouldn't make as much sense for.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. In France and in Portugal, they are like experimenting with like actual like finding employers for like chatting up employees after hours. Like
Finding them?
they're finding them, yeah.
Oh
That's
wow.
that's going a bit too far.
Some very
I
crazily.
think that is going too far. I think you can have laws about, you could frame it as like a harassment uh type issue, and say that, the work, there are avenues that the worker can pursue if they feel like they're being unduly harassed outside of work hours in a way that like doesn't actually connect to their job.
But
But
Mhm.
if you do that and you put it on the employee and they have to continue working at that job, then that's gonna leave a bad taste in the employer's mouth, and that's gonna stop that employee from
who
either
else
reaching.
is there gonna be some oversight board then? I think it
Well,
gets into too
that,
much.
that's
Mhm.
what the government is doing. They're trying to protect the employees, which I understand. Like I don't know if I agree or disagree that it's the right thing to do, but I understand where they're coming from because as an employee, if my employer is asking me, at like 5:03, like, hey, yo, can you do this? This needs to be whatever. Like, you know, if I don't feel comfortable doing it, I don't want to go and be like, hey, you can't be doing this to me. because then that's going to leave a sour taste.
No,
in my-
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there should be avenues for the worker legally to pursue some kind of action but it should be up to the discretion of like a judge, for example. It shouldn't be this
Mhm.
it shouldn't be painted with one brush. Anytime an employer contacts anyone outside of work, they need to
Yeah,
get fined. It's
perfect example is it shouldn't be unionized, is what it shouldn't be. Because while
Yeah.
I agree that workers should absolutely work in safe working conditions, they should be able to refuse unsafe work. They should be able to report to an HR department if they feel like they're being harassed. Absolutely. However, whenever I hear the words, oh, we need to protect the employer, it usually makes me roll my eyes, because when I hear that, it usually comes from a place of entitlement where a group of workers get together and they say, oh, we deserve more because we're doing so much and my employer does very little. Like, that comes from a serious lack of understanding of how actual business is conducted.
It's true, but also like I agree with you. Look, like I'm not in favor of any socialist idea, really. Like I'll be straight up. I despise communism as a political and economic ideology. I think it's reprehensible. I think it comes from a place of bitterness, and I think that it has had catastrophic effects, demonstrable catastrophic effects on human society. However, it doesn't mean that all workers' grievances can be thrown aside. I
I'm not
think that
saying
there's
that.
room for listening. And for example, like some people, obviously there's gray areas in a lot of these issues, but some people, as we mentioned last episode, have to work paycheck to paycheck, or they inherited nothing from their parents and they grew up in a horrible situation. And is it a matter of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps? A lot of the times, yeah. And we've set up an economy and a system where you can move from lower class to middle class in one generation. And that's miraculous as far as human organization goes. But at the same time, there are some things like, for example, the status quo people back when communism was a rising force politically, all the status quo gentry in Europe, for example, thought that all the workers were fucking pieces of shit and thought the exact same things that we're thinking right now. And while I still agree that communism is an abhorrent ideology, they did have legitimate grievances back then, right? They were working horrendous hours for barely any money in factories where there was no safety, no oversight, horrible health issues, and they weren't cared about at all. And they were exploited to some extent in many industries for their labor. Nowadays, it's obviously quite different. There are unions, there are laws, and we have it very, very good here. But at the same time, people go through shit at jobs, and I think it's important to listen, especially as an employer, not say my employees are just lazy pieces of shit, but to really listen and say, okay, well, this is probably affecting my productivity and my bottom line. If my employees feel like shit on a daily basis and don't want to come into work, that actually affects the employer. That affects the bottom line of the company. That affects productivity. So I would be open to hearing anything as a CEO or as an owner, to try to improve the conditions of my workers.
Yeah, here's the best thing, and this is like, I'm gonna rephrase it in my own words, but the best thing I ever heard was like, if you own a business, like your stake in the company is much higher than the employees, because it's like your business is based on your success. You hire these people around you to help grow your business and to help make you more productive and be more successful. But unless they're a stakeholder in the company, all they really care about is making that money. So you as the employer have to either incentivize them, inspire them, or do something to make them be more like not just invested in their job, but invested in the company. And so, if they're open to being contacted at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, whatever, then you have to do something for them, either, again, money,
Yeah, health benefits.
or inspire them. Like, so you got to do something. And so it's not up to the onus of the employee. It's up to the owner, or the CEO, as you said, for those bigger companies. It's like you have to make employees want to like care about their stake in the company, not just their job.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and I feel like I need to say that I'm not saying I would be a person who would create a horrible despotic work environment. I want my if I had a series of employees, of course I would want them to feel like to feel like they're safe in their work environment, to enjoy their work environment, to give them some amount of benefits. Of course I would want to do that. I'm just always an advocate of keeping it in house, and I understand sometimes it gets a little bit complicated. Like if your boss is an abuser, he verbally abuses you, he exploits you to the nth degree. Yeah, of course those things happen. But at the end of the day, I'm always an advocate for keeping it in house. And if we can make sure that, the employer relationship can remain appropriate, I'm always a proponent of that. I hope my argument didn't come off that way.
Well, I think just to depart from the smaller issue of, is this legislation a good or bad thing? I think writ large, you can probably just say that employers need to have empathy with their employees. Like we all know people, I'm sure, that have absolutely not a care in the world for how other people feel. And at the end of the day, they may think that that is a strength for them and that will help them achieve their objectives, whatever that may be in terms of profit or growth or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, that damages the company in the long term. It's not going to survive. The organization, whatever it is that you're trying to lead, if you don't treat the people under you properly, if you don't have empathy for them, if you don't build relationships with them, you're not going to succeed. Your company is not going to be around for 100 years. You're not going to achieve the goals you want. And so, yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. But at the same time, I will defend capitalism till the sun comes up. And
No, I
like,
100%.
in fact, I think it actually, like, this whole discussion, it like, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, right? Like, remember at the beginning of last episode, we were pondering, like, what would the actual results be of the Great Resignation? Like, will this actually give the workers more power? I want to wait till I come to like a final conclusion, but
I think
it does. And I think that like that proves that capitalism works, and it proves that capitalism is inherent to democracy in a sense, because that is the democratic process. Think about it. Like, democracy as a political ideology is the people being involved in government, and the people essentially running government and pulling the strings indirectly of their government. And so if this, again, we'll wait and see what happens, but it could prove definitively that capitalism is basically just the economic version of democracy, in the sense that workers really do have the ability to stand up and say, I don't like these conditions, and I have the power to change them within the free market, which I think has already been proven. But for younger people our age who, socialist ideas tend to intoxicate more, this could really be a definitive moment. So we'll see.
I 100% agree with everything you said, Cam, but I think it depends on the industry, because I think we can all agree we live in a meritocracy. So I think industries that demand more skilled positions, you will see a lot more bargaining power in favor of the employee, for sure, 100%.
Yes.
But if we're talking about someone like, working at McDonald's, flipping burgers, no, I don't think we're going to see much change in those types of industries, because
we'll see though, because McDonald's was one of the few large corporations that offered raises to their employees during the pandemic.
Really?
You say,
okay, I'm surprised. Yeah, wow.
You say McDonald's is a like it's a bad job to have, Ryan, but it's actually not bad. They do a really good job of promoting their employees within. Like, if you work hard in McDonald's, you can go from like a line cook to the front end, and then up to management and up to upper management in McDonald's. So you treat it as like it's a bad job,
right? But there's only certain people that are going to achieve upper management, right? Those that actually, earned it because they have the skill to do it. They're not many people like that exist. There are unfortunately a lot of people out there that are just, they don't have the intelligence or the skill to fulfill those roles, and there's always going to be people like that.
Well, I think there's two mindsets to have, or there's I guess, like, I can categorize it into two things, but I'll split it up into four. So it's like those people that are just working paycheck to paycheck. They don't really care about their job. They just need the money to survive. And that's one way. But those people can be motivated. If they know that there's opportunity out there, they'll
Mhm.
be hungry for that opportunity. So they'll prove themselves time and time again. Like, listen, I should be the one that gets that promotion. I should be the one that moves from the back end to management. And they'll work hard for that. There's people that don't care. And they're just like, I just want my money, and then I'll do whatever I want with my free time, and I'm gonna go do that. And then there's people that are like, there's two, and then there's that kind of goes into these two mindsets. One is, I'm just the employee, the employer doesn't really care about me, I'm just taking my money. Or there's those people that are like, I'm the employee, the employer needs me, and I'm going to prove every single time they come to me I why they need me, why I'm vital to this. And those people are going to be the most successful people, and they're going to understand, if this company doesn't see my value, I'm going to go and find somewhere that does. So
if the great
there's-
resignation is if the great resignation is causing people to think that way and act that way, great. I'm so happy for people that they're finally waking up. But I think history has shown that more often than not, people are apathetic and they're just going to stick to what's safe, what they can do. And I don't think this great resignation is as large as, it's being reported. If I'm proven wrong and it goes the way I hope it goes, great. I hope so.
Well, the thing is, we also need people to fulfill those jobs.
Yeah.
The point is that there needs to be appropriate financial incentive as well as the proper culture, a culture that respects people for their worth in workplaces that makes them okay with staying. Because it was a lot of those jobs that, we take for granted. But again, like I alluded to a while back, allow us to enjoy the standard of living that we enjoy, that people feel exploited in, are not appreciated. And sometimes, or even a lot of the times, it's unjustified, because I think there is a lot of entitlement in our generation, a lot of entitlement. But at the same time, we need people to work those jobs, and so we need to create an environment that incentivizes that, I think.
I think it's
I feel like
important.
with
We
entitlement,
mentioned this word a lot. We've been talking about exploitation a lot, and I think it warrants, explaining. Yes, capitalism does. At the end of the day, yes, capitalism does exploit people. It does. That's what it shares in common with every other political and economic ideology, especially communism. However, capitalism does one thing that no other ideology does, and that is foster and promote wealth. And if the Great Resignation is an indicator that that's what capitalism is doing, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
no, I was just gonna say, like, when it, like, you keep talking about like entitlement and like laziness and stuff like that, but I mean, like, who doesn't think they're entitled to more? And that, like, here's my favorite thing, it's like, people will say, like, your world, I'm just living in it. If you think that you're entitled, there's two ways you can go about it. You can either be like, put your nose down and, like, I believe I'm entitled to this, so I'm going to prove that I'm entitled to it.
Mhm.
And if someone doesn't see my value, and it might not be even like,
Well, so a healthy
being entitled,
entitlement.
it's like, yeah, it's
Well, I
like,
think that's
I'm
antithetical to entitlement.
my value is here, but I'm being valued down here. So either you see my value or I'm going to take my and, like, I think, obviously it takes a little bit of self-reflection and say, like, well, I think my value is up here. Is it really up here? Am I reaching my full potential to what I'm worth? Maybe.
I don't see that as entitlement though, Connor. I see that as, if you're someone who actually thinks they're worth more and they're going to do the work to prove that they're worth more, that's not entitlement to me. That's someone who's actually taking an initiative to try and make something of themselves.
Well, but it is legitimate entitlement as opposed to illegitimate entitlement, where you're actually wrong about the value that you have and you think you deserve more, but you're wrong. Whereas, like, I get what you're saying, Connor, and maybe it's just an issue of semantics and the language that we're using. But that's the beauty of capitalism, right? Is that if you are actually legitimately entitled because your value is higher than what you're actually being compensated for, then if you pull the right levers and press the right buttons and go down the right paths, you should be able to be rewarded for that. Right.
And
But
it's kind of it's a unique situation, because in a capitalist society, those that have that can, like, correctly perceive their own value and they have legitimate entitlement, they disproportionately get rewarded, essentially. Which in turn, like, how does that play out in the real world? That means jobs for those that are seeking to find that trajectory, right?
It
Look at the
means
greatest
negotiating
companies.
power as
Look at the
well.
greatest companies in
Mhm.
the world. The reason why people are seeking those jobs is because um the owner of that company was very similar to them and had a similar kind of like outlook on life, and they want to take the same steps that they took to reach that point.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting.
Okay, do you want to pivot to 4-day work week? Because
Sure.
I think that is one of the in talking about the Great Resignation, that's one of the things that has been brought up as a potential solution to all these, again, real or perceived grievances of workers. So a 4-day work week, not necessarily 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, right? Maybe 10-hour days, 4 days a week. It comes to the exact same amount, 40 hours, right?
Mhm.
Then you have that third day of weekends to run errands, to get groceries, to do whatever. Do you think that is a legitimate solution to this kind of pervasive burnout that people seem to be experiencing? Because I don't think you can really write it off as laziness or entitlement when it amounts to the same 40-hour work week.
So this is the way I look at the 4-day work week. The way I see it is those that want to succeed and be in the top 1%, those that want more wealth are just going to work more than 40 hours. There has nothing to do with entitlement or laziness in what I'm saying.
Yeah, they will anyways.
Look,
Yeah.
look at Elon
Mhm.
Musk. He wants to work, and that's why he's so successful. So if you're a person who only wants to work 40 hours, well, then you're capping your success. Okay. So if you're okay with that amount of success, and whether it has anything to do with, it has nothing to do with entitlement or laziness, it's just you're okay with that success, fine. Work 4 days a week, whether that's 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day. That's your decision.
Well,
But if
but
you want
it's
to
not
make
your
more,
decision though. Should that be adopted as the norm?
I
Because it's
like,
not your decision. You can't choose to work 4 days a week right now.
honestly, there's two ways of going about this. And when you look at productivity, like you're only the most productive for 3 days out of the 5 days, right? There's like you're
Mhm.
and it's proven, like you're not very productive on Monday. You're back at work. You're like, you have to go through all your emails, make sure you're up to date, and then you're like, okay, this is going to be my plan for the week. So you're not going to be like your highest performance. You're going to be you're doing a little bit catch up, and then you're doing a little bit of like projection for the upcoming week. And then Tuesday you start to you're hitting the ground running. When you wake up in the morning, you're getting your stuff done, you're doing what you need to do. Wednesday, like hump day, you're most productive.
Friday is a
Thursday,
waste.
yeah, Thursday,
Yeah.
you're doing enough work, you're doing good work, but you're like, oh, tomorrow's Friday. So at the end of the day, you kind of trail off a bit. And then Friday you do it like enough work, but you don't do that much work. So if you take that and you go to a 4-day work week, I'm curious as to, you know, is a 5 days of like, like that, the ramp up and the ramp down, is that going to change into 2 and 2, like what that might look like?
Mhm.
Or I'm
Yeah,
not
like
sure.
there's the
I
potential for
think,
it to slack
yeah.
off again, and then
Mhm.
Thursday would become the new Friday, and then people would be demanding 3-day work
Exactly.
weeks.
Yeah, it's a
But I'm not
psychological
sure.
thing.
I really don't. I'm not convinced that that is what would happen. I really think that, and I've never really been a proponent of this before, but I think in looking into it a bit more that, you know, it would allow people to be more productive and also have more time for themselves, like a perfect balance. And for the people that do want more, of course they can work more. I mean, there's 40-hour work weeks right now, and Elon Musk works 100 hours. So
Yeah.
it's like
So
it's still
I
gonna
don't I
happen.
don't think it I definitely don't think it needs to be put into legislation or any sort of labor or employment code. If employers and businesses want to start only requiring their employees to work 40 hours over 4 days, and they still want to operate on other days beyond that, and they need to hire more employees to facilitate that, fine. But then you might have an issue of wage and expenses that might become that issue might be projected onto employees, right? Because if employees only want to work 4 days across 4 days, those are 3 other business days that you're no longer open. I don't
Okay.
know how many employers are going to want to just say, I'm going to close for 3 days, because I can guarantee 99% of them are going to say, no, I want to be open at least 5 to 6 days a week, right?
Yeah,
So-
well,
No,
maybe
I
the
think-
public
Because
sector then, maybe in the public sector.
you
Yeah.
can make, because like, so like you can still have your business open 7 days a week. You just have to switch your employee schedule.
Right, so
to
that means we're
reflect.
gonna have to hire more employees because employees are only gonna be willing to work maximum 40 hours over 4 days.
Or just switch the schedules. But I think here's the thing. My buddy is one of my buddies works for the company, and they work 9-hour days Monday to Thursday, and they work a half day on Friday. And I honestly think that's probably like the best solution of all. You
Mhm.
still get work done on Friday, but you get like your employees get the afternoon off, and it's only 1 extra hour a day that they're in the office. And like those people that work hard are still in the office. And if they want to work past the half day on Friday, no one's stopping them. But they have that option of after working 9-hour days instead of 8-hour days, you work your 9-hour days. And then if you want, you know, like like even people that are super motivated and work hard, like to take a time off every now and then. Like instead of having to go to the cottage Friday night after work or take time off, they can go Friday afternoon after work and not take that time off.
Well,
So
so
it's not
Connor,
like-
I want to address what you said about, just change of shifts, because it's not that simple. Let's say we have a small business where he has just one employee, and originally that employee was working 40-hour work week over 5 days. But now he wants to just work a 40-hour work week over 4 days. But I still have to be open that Friday, but I have no one to work that Friday. So now I have to hire a new employee, pay him the same wage. So now I'm incurring that many more expenses into my business. Well, now I'm inclined to pay that person who's working 40 weeks less, or that person I just hired on less, because I can't afford to hire another person on. So what
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying is it's not just that simple to change shifts, because if we decide to shift towards this model of only working 4 days, but this business wants to be open for more than 4 days, employees might start to suffer because businesses have to protect their bottom line at the end of the day, and they're not going to be
So
able to
give me
facilitate
an example of
salary.
a business that would operate like that.
Any clothing department wants to be open from Monday to Sunday. Most clothing departments are, and small
And
clothing
so-
departments only have like 1 to 2 employees. If you're looking at something bigger, like a lingerie store or something more commercialized, yeah, they have more employees. It's not a big of an issue. But if you have a small entrepreneur who's just starting his department store, he can't facilitate that.
So what normally their business practice is they hire part-time employees to work shifts. So they'll be part-time employees. They'll work, 4 or 6 hours a day. And so if you have 2 employees running that,
But why
you
would I
can
need to do that if I could get one employee to work across 5 days the same amount of hours?
you're paying 2 people the same amount you pay one person, and you can change their
Not,
shift
but not,
to
but not
facilitate.
necessarily. Not necessarily. That's why I'm saying it's not a perfect solution.
Well, like I'm painting a broad stroke over this, but the vast majority of clothing stores have shift work for that exact reason. And then
Right.
you
So they
can't-
have shift. So if anything, that
you can't-
4-day
you can't
work model
operate-
might already be actually happening.
you can't operate a business with only one employee, because that employee is entitled to time off. So you already need at least 2 in order
would
to
have time off.
facilitate that.
He would have time off if it was a 5-day work schedule. And
No,
then
no,
those 2 days could be run by the person who's running the business. In fact, most
That
offices
person-
do that.
That person that one person is entitled, they don't work 52 hours, 52 weeks
I
in a
didn't
year.
say they're still working 40 hours over 5 days, but those last 2 other days, let's say that the employer wanted to keep those open, he would then work, because I know a lot of employers who do that.
Yeah, but beyond that person that's working 40 hours a week is entitled to holidays. And so
Yeah,
you
okay,
need,
of course he is. So then the employer would cover for him.
Okay,
And
so
that's
I
it.
feel like the only look, I think we can say that it's probably more feasible if this was to be done to do it for the public sector, which is still a lot of people.
Mhm. And
And that would probably be a good thing. And in fact, in Iceland, it's been proven to be basically an overwhelming success, with people reporting more productivity, better work-life balance, less stress. So in
I do
fact,
think it's
there's
happening
probably
to
too
some
many
degree already,
too many
though.
dollars spent on public sector jobs anyway. So
But
I
like,
think also
No cap.
going back to the like this retail industry, if you give people an extra day off, they're more likely to take that extra day and go shopping on these consumer goods. So I would, again, this is
yeah,
just making
that's
assumptions and stuff like that. You'd probably be successful enough to hire more people.
It's true.
But-
Like like basically everyone is incentivized. Like everyone has an interest in people being successful. I feel like, the government has an interest in it because it'll allow them to generate more tax revenue. Any private sector, small or large business, has an interest in it because, like you said, if people have more money in their pockets and more time to spend it, that'll allow for economic growth. I mean, it's more like one of the most simple principles possible, right? More people are going to be spending more money. That's good for everyone.
Mm.
But okay, let's go back to Phil. What did we not touch on in this whole topic of the Great Resignation that you want to touch on still?
I just wanted to throw one more thing into the 4-day work week. I'm not sure if we answered the core question of like why are they seeking it?
Mm-hmm.
Like we know like just the general principle, work-life balance, things like that, but are they generally seeking more time off, or are they trying to prevent burnout? Because
Yeah.
they're two
Mhm.
very different issues.
Isn't that the same thing?
I'm necessarily convinced that working a 10-hour day, but 4 days a week, or an 8-hour day for versus 5 days a week, I'm not sure that the 10-hour day is gonna become more productive. Because kind of like this whole topic has been like, why are we working all these godforsaken of hours?
Right. But
I
it
just
can
don't think
maintain productivity and improve mental health.
Yeah, if you think
Yeah.
about it, like
it could.
here's the best way. Like you think about doing anything, it takes time. Like if you're gonna go out and do something, it takes time to get out there to go do it and then to come home, all that stuff. So if you like, and I know like most people during the work week will work their job and then come home. If they have an after work activity, they'll go do it. But for the most part, people are staying in and not doing stuff. You have an extra day, you can go take a day trip somewhere. You could go do something. You have an entire extra day where you can go do stuff. I think that's the pull. That's why people are into it, is because at the end of your work day you're going to do something, but it's not like a big event. Whereas like if you had a third day on your weekend, you can take more weekend trips places. You have more time to go do and experience things. Or if you're a homebody, you have a full day where you can go. If you like to do yard work, you can go do yard work. If you like to go golf, you can golf for 3 days instead of 2 days. Stuff like that.
You're gonna be happier, basically.
Okay,
I
so basically your time off is directly linked to your performance at work.
Could be.
so
Could
here,
be.
here's how from my own experience, I used to work a 4-day work week and have 3 days off. Technically, I wasn't like not doing anything on those 3 days off, but for that job, I was only working 4 days. But how it worked for me was I'd work 2 days, take a day off, have a day off, work another two, and then I'd have my weekend. But before that, I used to do 4 days on, 3 days off. And I found that 4 days on, 3 days off, I would have much, much worse burnout with the 4 days on and 3 days off in comparison to the 2-1-2-2. Just because I think working, and it all depends on what kind of work you're doing and what kind of hours you're working too, I think is also dependent on burnout and mental health. Like for me, I used to have to get up at 4 a.m. for work. And doing that 4 days in a row, working 10-hour shifts was a lot of burnout. I definitely experienced it even over 4 days.
It's burnout. Getting up at 4 a.m. and working at the fucking golf course, 12 days on, 2 days off.
That's asinine.
That blows.
So if people want to start, if people want to really, if it really is about avoiding burnout and ensuring productivity remains high, which I'm a large proponent for, I think a better model is to work 2 days on, or maybe work 3 days on and then take a break instead of working 4 in a row. Because I don't think that's going to, I think we're going to experience a very similar case to what we're seeing now with 5 days on. People are going to get lazy on that Thursday. I still believe that psychology is going to stay there. I think when you break things up into smaller chunks, people are able to swallow that a little bit better.
I do know one thing for certain. And
shit.
this is kind of what I will say
That's new.
in our final
No.
conclusion of this chapter. We are entering the age of abundance,
The apocalypse. Oh,
of consumerism, of entertainment, of satisfaction, and we are all going to be faced with some serious decision making,
mhm.
because it could change the course of our life and our families' lives.
I think
Yeah.
it's just going to keep growing because it's proven that nothing's really faltered, and the more consumers and like that, as you said, like quick gratification, there's more like niche markets opening up for people.
I think that
when-
maybe we just have to take a better look at our whole society. And I think that maybe the dissatisfaction in work is actually just a symptom of other problems in our society and culture, not necessarily work related grievances as much. But you know what I
It
mean?
could have
Like
just seeped
burnout
its
and
way in.
yeah, like burnout and anxiety are massive problems among our generation, and we can talk about that in an episode of its own. And that is not in any way fully caused by work conditions. I think there's a myriad of other social
Oh, for sure.
problems and sicknesses that we have in our society that are causing those feelings, but those feelings are real and they need to be addressed, and that's a generational task, I think. So maybe we can discuss that later. We'll certainly come back to economic issues of this nature at other times during the podcast. But yeah, great discussion, boys. We've got a minute left here, so minute and a half, so I figure we may as well wrap her up for the week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, if you guys leave some comments or slide into DMs if you have any topics you want us to discuss. I think between today's conversation and Tuesdays, it's a little bit to wrap your heads around. So, if there's something you want to further discuss with one of the things we brought up, by all means DM us and we can address it in one of our future shows. Again, hit that bell, subscribe, and take care, brush your hair.